I was reading something, and this was written by an exorcist, and he compiled evidence from a bunch of different sources, different exorcists he talked to, exorcisms he'd been involved in. And one thing he said was that it was commonly found that in homes, schools, different locations that there was some demonic presence in, there was virtually always a demon perched on the primary chair in front of the television. Now, this was this exorcist's experience, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on mass media, television, the internet, and the relationship between that and the demonic, the way the demons can use it.
I mean, that might have been his experience. I don't know if I would necessarily I would go that far myself to say that. I'm not saying that he's...
And to be clear, I'm not saying he said it 100% of the time, but that it was a very common thing, that there was some relationship between the demon and the television.
Well, the fact of the matter is that what demons ultimately want to do is to control our patterns of thinking, because from there our choices are going to flow. So they want to do that, and so that means that they are going to do everything they can to be in control of the various means of media. This is two observations about that. That's why you tend to see the media, at a certain point you're just like, I got to turn these people off because it's constantly lying to me.
Yep.
It's just and you'll see that, and so there's this constant manipulation, constant social engineering they're trying to do, constantly trying to manipulate people. And that's I think is diabolic in the broad sense, because that's the way demons want to control that. And I think the demons actually control a lot of the people that are involved in those, not through possession necessarily, but through various other means. This is also why, too, which you might have experienced yourself, anytime you're on the side of the good, the demons are going to be messing with your work ability, even in the context of the media. So, or they'll block it, or something that you think, this is something that should really get out there, and all of a sudden there's nobody watching it, etc. So that all being said, they want to control the sources of information, just like communists want to control the sources of information, etc. Because from that they can control you.
Well, I just want to mention here, I got to do a shameless plug, but this is part of why I'm an animator, I'm a cartoonist, and for those in the audience who don't know, we've made over 600 animated videos, we have over 1 million subscribers and 290 million views with zero spent on marketing, and we've decided to move past these shorts and create a full-length animated show to try to communicate good, conservative values, not through these ham-fisted monologues like, unfortunately, a lot of campy conservative content has tried to do, but through good story and jokes. So if you guys want to help us in that, we've got a week left to get fully funded. We're in a really good place, but we're not going to get to the finish line without your help. So go over to twistedplots.com and help us fund this animated anthology series, which tackles a new issue in every single episode and does it in a very entertaining, compelling way that spreads a positive message.
I want to talk. There's a couple big stories right now with 3i Atlas as well as AI. 3i Atlas has people believing that maybe an alien vessel is headed our way. AI, of course, some people think is literally just demonic. Before we get into those, which are going to be bigger subjects, I want to get more granular. And with all of this high-level conversation about motivations of demons and stuff, it's interesting. But can you tell us just a specific story of maybe the most either shocking, profound, or impactful exorcism that you've experienced or performed?
I mean, the preternatural signs that you tend to see they're all part of the show, right? They're just showmen. They're just it's parlor tricks. So I don't pay too much attention to that. But usually what you find is that it's the stuff that comes out underneath all of that the demons will actually talk about. So I tend to find demons very boring because they're the same. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And I've been doing this for 18 years. So after a while, you're just like, I tell people it's like being on the receiving end of a sewer pipe. After a while, it gets a little old.
Yeah.
Right? But
you never see that in the exorcism movies. You never see guys just bored about the demons.
Yeah. Maybe
we'll have to do an episode on that at some point. It's the bored exorcist.
And it's a grind. I mean, it's day after day you're doing this stuff, right? So, but once in a while, just like in a sewer pipe, a woman will lose her wedding ring and it comes floating down the sewer pipe. So you get these little gems now and then, right? So in doing this line of work, I mean, it's not my chosen line of work, but this is, you get these little gems. Well, one of those was in a case that I'm actually working on right now where this demon had a particular beef with Our Lady and God's chosen will in relationship to Our Lady. And he basically, what came out was this, is that every single person in the end, if you're going to go to heaven, ultimately has to sacrifice things, because St. Paul says God is all in all. So if we're going to be in heaven, we're not going to be interested in what we have here or anything like that. It's only going to be him, because all these things are good only because they have some semblance of him. But when you see him, he's so good. He is goodness itself, so you're going to be completely enthralled with that. So that means that on a certain level, there has to be, at a certain stage in a person's either life or before they see him, there has to be a willingness to put aside all other things and to see him. Now, in parlance, we just call that sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice these lesser things in order to gain this greater good. And we do this all the time in relationship to, in order to put this podcast out, there's all sorts of lesser goods you have to put aside in order to achieve this greater good, right? So this is something that we do all the time. Well, the demons, that they wanted some perfection, this lesser good, but they had to be willing to let loose of that in order to attain this greater good. Now, as I mentioned before, they only had one choice, and then after that, they're locked in. Well, his beef with Our Lady was, he said that she sacrificed herself her entire life over and over and over again and never once counted the personal cost. And he said, that's why I rejected God's plan. Because I only got to sacrifice once, and I knew it did not matter how hard I sacrificed in that one thing. I would never attain what she did through the virtue that she would attain through that perpetual sacrificing. And so I often tell people the most beautiful thing. So that was one of the things that I started to reflect on, and then later in the process, I was saying Mass. And anytime he would manifest during Mass, because the woman would attend the Mass and receive communion before we'd actually start the sessions, anytime he would manifest before Mass was finished, I realized, okay, God's told him he's got to tell me something, because this is these patterns, because they're very consistent. Even though we tend to think they kind of maraud and act randomly, no, they're very consistent in the way their behavior. So after the Mass, I started the session, and I said, he told you have to tell me something, didn't he? He was so angry, because by this time he's manifested, which means he's morphed, and this woman's looking like a man at this stage. He was so angry he wouldn't even look at me. So I said, shut up. You are not permitted to talk. Now, there's two reasons I did that. One is I want to maximize his pain. He's one of these, this particular demon is one of those where if you try and ask the question right off the bat, he'll hold out and hold out and hold out. Whereas if you beat him brutally for a while, it softens him up, and then as soon as you allow him to talk, then he'll talk.
And when you say beat him brutally, just for the audience, what does that mean?
That means you're saying prayers and making him reflect on certain things, etc.
The only reason I wanted to flag it is because some number of people who have seen too many movies are going to go, this priest is beating people when they say they're possessed.
No,
so I wanted to take that ammunition from them.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, it's a series of prayers and certain things that you do, reflections that you make him drag him through, and which is painful for him because it's contrary to his will. Well, so 45 minutes later, after I've made this guy's life miserable, I said, you have something to tell me? And he just looks at me, and he said, he told me I had to tell you my nature. I said, let's hear it. And he said, I convinced people that they cannot be separated from the particular good. Now, when he said that, I stepped back, and I said, that's a whopper. Because I knew exactly what that meant.
What does that mean?
In every sacrifice, you have to turn away from a particular or a lesser good in order to achieve a greater good. And what he does is he spends all his time convincing people, no, you can't let loose of that lesser good.
Wow.
You have to hold on to that. And as a result, they don't pursue the greater things in life.
Wow.
And so, and he said, and then after that, this was very interesting. After that, he said, that's how I took out your country. That's how I took out Adam and Eve. That's how I'm taking out your church. That's how I keep people in spiritual mediocrity. And he just goes down this list, and I'm like, there it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's one of those gems that floats by. And so it's helped me because then I realized, because as an exorcist, a comfortable life would be a lot better thing than I'm dealing with now.
Yeah, of course.
But I realized, no, that's a lesser good.
Well, and speaking of that, you mentioned that this isn't your chosen line of work. My understanding is that you don't choose to be an exorcist. You're essentially made one. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so usually basically what happens is that when cases arise, they come to the knowledge of the chancery, which is run by the bishop, and then he chooses a priest to undergo formation in order to become an exorcist, and then he becomes the exorcist for the diocese.
So it's not like there's a bunch of guys going out there going, I'm going to be an exorcist and this is going to be my job. Part of the reason it's important to point that out too is because I almost wouldn't trust someone who wanted to become an exorcist, who wanted that to be their career path. And so it's really important that the church just kind of picks people and says, you're the guy who has to do this.
Is there a possibility of like a reverse exorcist? Like someone who, let's just say, hates the church and wants the demons and wants the destruction and then seeks to get people possessed?
Oh, yeah. That's all the time. It's when people curse other people. So
anyone could do it.
Anyone can do it. And this is one of the reasons why.
Don't do it.
Yeah. This is actually one of the reasons why cursing or doing, well, the technical word is malefice, which comes from Latin words malus facere, which is to do evil against people. And there's various ways that can be done. There's rituals, which is some kinds of curses.
So wait. Sorry, just to interrupt, but like witches?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.